Hey everyone, it's Michael Bishop again, and I'm back with another segment of I'm Fine. During my last segment, I talked about community, specifically the hemophilia community, and how important it is to stay connected with the hemophilia community despite our perceived differences within it. I spoke a lot about the importance of not feeling alienated. But since we already talked about not feeling disconnected from other hemophilia patients, I think it's time to look closely at our friends and family and how to not feel separated or disconnected from them. How to feel acceptance and love from the people that you love and from the people that love you. I've often felt like a burden to other people in my life. But I think more insidious than that is feeling like an inconvenience. Burden is such a heavy word with a ton of negative connotations. Inconvenience is also certainly a pejorative when directed at ourselves or others, but on the surface it doesn't sound as bad. Consequently, I think it's easier to throw that word around when we're thinking of ourselves, particularly when it comes to having a bleed or having limited mobility because of joint damage. It can be hard to think about yourself as a burden, but I think it can be deceptively easy to think about yourself as an inconvenience. And getting rid of that feeling can be difficult. It was hard for me. And honestly, it led to me canceling plans, hating my body, and ultimately not accepting myself. Growing up, I often felt that way. And when I was planning this episode, I was trying to come up with one specific example of a time in which I felt like that. But honestly, it happened so frequently, they all kind of blend together. It's hard to remember one specific time. But like on the weekends in high school and in college, when my friends would want to go to parties or to some social event somewhere, if I had a bleed, that meant my friends had to choose between hanging out with me at my house or leaving me alone and going to the parties. And there were many times where we had to change plans because a bleed happened suddenly. Like we were supposed to go to a museum or a zoo or just go see a movie, and then the day had to change because I was hurting or I couldn't walk. These things can be small. There's nothing inherently traumatic about having to change plans or see a movie at a later date. But when it happens over and over again, you can start to feel like you're affecting your friends' lives. But I think the biggest thing for me has always been crutches and wheelchairs. Having to lug those things around because a bleed might happen on a trip, honestly, sometimes felt like the worst part of having hemophilia. I remember when I was in my mid-20s, I planned a weekend trip with a girlfriend. We were going to a big city, we were going to see some friends, we were going to explore and just have fun. But I just couldn't bring myself to bring my crutches or my wheelchair. I wasn't comfortable enough with her to tell her that my knee might bleed and I might need one of those things. I assumed she was going to think, oh my gosh, my boyfriend really is disabled. I don't know if I can handle this. I was always so worried that the people around me were going to ignore everything that they liked about me and not want to have me around anymore just because I had bleeds sometimes and couldn't participate in every aspect of life in the same way that they could. And suddenly these crutches and these wheelchairs felt like a tangible manifestation of the limitations that hemophilia had damned me to experience for the rest of my life. And sure enough, I got a bleed on the second day of that trip. And rather than still experiencing the city or hanging out with friends, just having me on crutches, we had to hang out in the hotel for the rest of the trip. And I think not being able to express your need for things like this, what boils down to essentially acceptance and assistance from your loved ones, now feels a little bit like immaturity to me. But I think it only feels like immaturity to me because it took me so long to realize what the root cause actually was, which is not being able to accept myself or love myself. Now let's cut to a year or so ago. I'm 32 now, so I was 31, maybe 30, and I was going to a friend's wedding. I was traveling by myself, but I knew a bunch of my friends would be there. In particular, my two best friends. Two wonderful women who have really helped me learn to love and accept myself. And this was a time when I was on crutches or in a wheelchair every single day. I hadn't socialized much in person since that had been the case, but of course I couldn't miss a wedding. So I loaded up my wheelchair and my crutches, which is not an easy thing to do when you need one of those things to move around, and I headed to the wedding. When I checked into the hotel, I used my crutches. I didn't want to get my wheelchair out unless I really needed it. So I somehow managed to get my suitcase, my suit, and my backpack up to my room with my crutches. Once I got there, I texted my best friends to let them know that I was checked in and in my room, and I asked if they were there. They said they were, and they invited me to their room so we could hang out while they got ready. I told them that I needed some time because, of course, I hurt my knee as I was getting upstairs, trying to crutch with everything that I was carrying, and that I needed to put my stuff down and go get my wheelchair out of my car, and then I could come meet them. And one of them rushed to my room, grabbed my keys, went downstairs into my car, got my wheelchair, and brought it back up to me. When I got to their room, I told them that I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get on the shuttle bus to the actual wedding venue, and they had already thought of everything. They said they'd help me get my wheelchair up there, they would ride with me, they would make sure I was okay, and they made sure I was good. And I ended up taking my crutches to the reception. And they sat with me the entire time. And I didn't even thank them for it. And it's not because I was ungrateful. It's because they truly seemed like they did not need or want to be thanked. They weren't forced to sit with their friend because he couldn't get up and dance with everyone else. They were just sitting with their friend. And we had an amazing time. And I left that night and I got to my hotel room and I cried because I truly felt loved and accepted in a way that I realized that I hadn't before. Now, do I think these two friends are particularly emotionally intelligent and kind and went above and beyond to make me feel loved? Yes, honestly, I do. But looking back on it, I know they were able to be that kind and supportive because I had opened up to them plenty of times about me feeling like an inconvenience in people's lives in the past. I had essentially told them that I needed support without directly asking for it. And thankfully, they were smart enough to figure that out by themselves. But ever since that night, I've been more willing to directly tell people what I need and to not second guess their willingness to help or their acceptance of me. I don't know how many times someone has rolled their eyes when I told them that I couldn't go to something or that I would be showing up on crutches. But I know how many times I've felt like someone was rolling their eyes when I told them that. And that's what really matters when it comes to my ability to ask someone for help. If you're listening to this or watching this, and you've ever felt like an inconvenience, please do not wait as long as I did to start loving and accepting yourself. If someone loves you, I know this sounds cliche, but they love every part of you. Work isn't work when it's being done to show somebody that you love them. So ask your friends for help. If you're lonely, tell them that you want them to hang out with you at the reception or wherever you are. And at the end of the day, thank them or don't, because maybe they don't need to be thanked. Thank you very much. I love you. Please love yourself too.